Well, today, President Trump is following through on another campaign promise to the military. He's signing an executive order reinstating the 8,000 service members who were discharged for not getting the COVID vaccine. He's given them full back pay and benefits as well. And the White House says when the mandate was repealed 2 years ago, listen to this, only 43 of those discharged troops volunteered to return to service. Maybe they didn't like the commander-in-chief at the time. Now this change comes as the CIA is changing its assessment on how COVID-19 began. It is agreeing with the FBI and the Energy Department that the virus most likely started from a lab leak in Wuhan, China. Who would have guessed? Alexandria Hoff has more on that.
Kaylee, good to be with you. Now, some might look at this and think that the CIA's position has been influenced by a new administration. But in fact, this assessment by the CIA was ordered and completed under President Biden. Newly confirmed CIA Director John Ratcliffe says all he did was declassify and release the findings on his first day on the job, agreeing with President Trump that Americans deserve transparency.
The purpose of the CIA is to protect Americans, to keep us safe from foreign threats and foreign adversaries. But we also need to be truthful with Americans. And he has stressed to me and others that, these aren't mutually exclusive missions.
So for years, the CIA said it did not have enough evidence to make a determination on COVID's origin. During a bulk of that time, those who floated the lab leak theory were cast off by the mainstream as conspiracy peddling. The CIA now joins the FBI and Energy Department in favoring the theory. But according to the agency, that assessment could change again if there is new evidence, stating in part, quote, CIA assesses with low confidence that a research-related origin of the COVID-19 pandemic is more likely than a neutral origin based on the available body of reporting. Senator Tom Cotton was one of the first big political names to support the lab origin theory. He reacted to this update on Fox News Sunday.
I didn't have access to classified intelligence or special scientific knowledge. I just used a little common sense and looked at the facts and understood what Chinese communists do.
Now, this assessment did not determine whether a possible leak was accidental or intentional, and there are scientific communities continuing to argue against the lab leak theory. The CDC's website still notes that the virus originated in bats. Kaylee?
Alexandria, thank you.
Sure.
So I love accountability, and I want to start here with the original conspiracy theorist. His name was President Donald Trump. I guess I was his co-conspiracy theorist because my very first briefing on May 1st, 2020 was dominated by questions of how this man could possibly think that a lab working on bat coronavirus may be the origin of coronavirus. Let's watch this, Emily.
The president said yesterday that he has a high degree of confidence that the coronavirus originated in a lab in Wuhan, China, and yet his own intelligence agencies say they're still investigating. So does the president have information, and has he drawn a conclusion that the intelligence community has not yet?
Look, the president's statement is consistent with the other intelligence assessments. And I would note that intelligence statement you're referring to really made 2 points. One, that this virus originated in China. Two, that it began through contact with infected animals or was the result of an accident at a laboratory in Wuhan. So I consider that consistent with what the president said, that he's seen intelligence suggesting it could be in the Wuhan laboratory. Emily, this was 5 years ago.
Yes, and I will say your articulate and informed answer at the time, Kaylee, dovetails perfectly with what Senator Tom Cotton said, which was essentially, I looked at the facts and I used some common sense. I point as well, and we talked about this often at the time, to those multiple cables that were not classified that came from U.S. State Department actors who had visited that lab in Wuhan, drawing the administration's attention to the violations of safety protocol and the violations of health regulations there, and multiple other things that they deemed quite alarming. All of this preceded the outbreak, and it also dovetails in with the CIA referencing open source information in addition to classified information, meaning info that anyone can get, meaning the cables that weren't classified, meaning information everyone can look at. It is so disheartening that at the time, the cloak and dagger, the narrative being pushed was absolutely anything but listening to the facts and listening to the truth. Final point, if I may, as we talk about and get into the soldiers that are going to be reinstated in their back pay, just a reminder that the U.S. Naval Institute in February of 2021 noted that a third of service members who had been offered the vaccine refused to take it, meaning that while 8,000 held out, there were so many more thousands that capitulated, and it's that you can never get back.
It's a great point. You know, Harris, The media at the time, it's just amazing to me. The gut reaction was just to resist the guy who's getting the classified briefings. NPR scientists debunk lab accident theory. They use the word debunk. Washington Post fact checker, was the new coronavirus accidentally released from a Wuhan lab? Doubtful. CNN Anthony Fauci just crushed Donald Trump's theory on the origins of the coronavirus. And then cell phone, here's the Washington Post, how the Wuhan lab leak theory suddenly became credible. It wasn't sudden. You should have listened to the guy getting classified presidential briefs every single morning.
Look, I had Dr. Siegel join me last hour, and he said, and had been saying from the beginning, that we needed American scientists on the ground at the Wuhan lab. And he talked about, through his own sourcing, and now, as you mentioned, Emily, much of this is out in the open, but at the time, there were military members from the communist government of China that were outside that lab. And he said you could see surveillance footage that showed some of the people who worked there going to the hospital as early as summer of 2019. He said it was clear things were going on there. Now, you fast forward to the beginning of Joe Biden's presidency. We had more people die under Joe Biden than we did under the previous presidency. And that was at the height of the pandemic under Trump. What was going on? Well, we weren't still getting the research into therapeutics. We needed to know the origin because it would have helped us not only, locate and find and come up with a vaccine that worked for some people, but maybe better therapeutics. Name one that Biden came up with, not personally, but under his direction as the administration. He didn't press for that. And this final note just about what we learned under him. He was not a person who could push China. And I feel like the liberal media was in complicit reign with him in terms of keeping us in the dark about things, because that would stop accountability on his part. He didn't have to get tough. Nobody was asking him the tough questions about this lab leak theory or anything else.
Jason, and you think about the service members who distrusted the vaccine and the broader public, and then you think about all the times we were lied to. There's no human-to-human transmission with COVID. Kids can't go back to school. That's the science. Well, that was not scientific. And then you go to Fauci, who told us, you don't need masks. They're not effective. Oh, wait, I was saying that for the healthcare providers and misleading the American public.
I'm glad Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth are making it right to the service members. Let's remember that Rand Paul is now the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. And just because Biden gave a preemptive immunity, essentially, to Dr. Fauci, a preemptive pardon, that does not excuse him for coming before Congress. If they issue a duly issued subpoena, which I think Rand Paul will do, you must come testify, because we're past that. It's now Donald Trump's administration, and he's got to come clean to that. And I think there are going to be civil suits. I think Dr. Fauci's time in the sun is not gone away, because he's going to have to answer the questions, because I do think, in my personal opinion, he lied to Congress. And Rand Paul is going to call him up there, and this is going to continue on until we get to the truth.
It was also, the treatment of the unvaccinated was evil and wrong. We often look back. I didn't get the vaccine. I'm proud to not have gotten the vaccine. We look back in history, we wonder how atrocities are committed. We saw it during COVID. The unvaccinated were segregated against, discriminated against, barred from entry in restaurants, denied medical care, denied the ability to travel, in some instances, fired from their jobs. I wrote back in November of 2001 in Newsweek about how, at the time, looking at data, I knew I had a 99.97% chance of survival against COVID. Why would I get a vaccine for a virus that is not a threat to my life when we don't know what the vaccine is going to eventually do to you down the road? And the administration, the Biden administration, knew this as well. July of 2021, there was an outbreak in Provincetown, Massachusetts. 75% of the cases were vaccinated. There was also a study in The Lancet published that the vaccine was not spreading or stopping the transmission of the Delta virus at the time. Yet Joe Biden went out on a town hall in July of 2021, lying to the American people, telling them you would not get COVID if you got vaccinated, and then forced the vaccine in the arms of Americans. And we still don't fully know what the vaccine did to people who didn't need the vaccine in the first place, and COVID was never a threat to their life. So it was a shameful, evil period of time, and there needs to be some level of accountability, in my opinion.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.